All right, so like I said, we are on page 28, and we're looking at example 5 today. And we're going to find the coordinates finding the coordinates of an endpoint. Given one endpoint and the midpoint. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the midpoint formula. So let's do this. Let's say midpoint. And I'm going to show you some notation. Midpoint. We're going to say midpoint x value and the midpoint y value is equal to, all right, we found the midpoint a week ago. We said that it was x sub 1 plus x sub 2 divided by 2, and y sub 1 plus y sub 2 divided by 2. This gave us the midpoint at the x, so these two go together. And then the midpoint, the y value at the midpoint is equal to the sum of the two y values divided by 2. So x at the midpoint is the sum of the x's divided by 2. Y at the midpoint is the sum of the y values divided by 2. So we're going to use this formula today to find this endpoint, this second endpoint right here. We're going to be finding this given the midpoint and one endpoint. So here's what the question is going to look like. Find the coordinates of J. If K at -1, 2 is the midpoint of JL, that little line over the top means segment JL, and L has coordinates (3, -5). So if we put that, if you wanted to look at this, you don't need to write this part down, but if we wanted to look at this, we're finding the coordinates of J if K is the midpoint of JL and L is at 3, -5. So if we were to draw a coordinate plane, x-axis, y-axis, L has coordinates of 3, -5. So if we were at 3, -5, and we plotted a point, we could call it L. K is the midpoint of JL, so we know what L is. K is at -1, 2. So if we were at like -1, 2, this point right here, this is K. It's at -1, 2. It's the midpoint. It's in the middle of L and J. So find the coordinates of J if K is the middle and L is down here. So J is going to be up here somewhere, right? Does everybody see that? And we're looking for its X and Y value. So we're going to find X at the midpoint first. I'm sorry. We're going to find X up here at J. So we're going to label these points. This down here, the X and Y at L, this is an X sub 1 and a Y sub 1. This -1 value, X at the midpoint, this is our M sub X, and this 2 is our M sub Y. And what we're trying to find is X sub 1, X sub 2, and Y sub 2. So here's how this works. We're going to say that for the X, we're going to say that -1 is equal to 3 plus X sub 2 divided by 2. That's how we find X at the other endpoint. This formula is the sum of the two X values divided by 2 gives us the midpoint. Well, we already know the midpoint and we know one X value. So we're substituting those into our midpoint formula. So to find this X, well, for X sub 2, we can say that multiply both sides by 2. On the left-hand side, we get 2 times -1, which is -2, equal to. On the right-hand side, these 2's cancel, and we get 3 plus X sub 2. And then subtract 3 from each side. And -5 is equal to X sub 2. So there's the first point you're trying to find, your X sub 2. This point's -5. And now we're going to do the same thing to find the Y. For Y sub 2. We're going to say that our Y value at the midpoint, which is 2, is equal to the sum of the two Y values, which is -5 plus Y sub 2, divided by 2. And in order to solve for this Y sub 2, we're going to multiply both sides by 2. On the left side, 2 times 2 is 4. And that's equal to. On the right-hand side, these 2's cancel. And we get -5 plus Y sub 2. Add 5 to each side. And 9 is equal to Y sub 2. So this y value at the other endpoint is 9. So you're asked to find the coordinates of J. So here's the coordinates of J. Now I want you to look at this one other way for a second. If you were told that L is an endpoint and K is in the middle, and you need the other endpoint, if you look at these two x values, how far is it from 3 to -1 on the number line? Isn't 3 plus 4 equal to, or 3 minus 4 equal to -1? Okay. So to get from an endpoint to the midpoint, you went left 4. So wouldn't you have to go left another 4 to get to the other endpoint? So -1 minus 4 would be -5. And then on the y coordinate, or on the y axis, if you went from -5 to 2, isn't that adding 7 or going up 7? And if you go up 7 from the end to the middle, then you need to go up another 7 from the middle to the other end. So this 2 plus 7 would be the 9. Some people think it's easier to do that. Other people like to use the formula to find the second endpoint. All right, so look at one more example down there at the bottom of page 28, example 5a. We're going to find the coordinates of the missing endpoint. If P is the midpoint of EG. All right, P is in the middle of EG. So if we're given E, and it's at -8,6, and P is at -5,10, we need the coordinates of G. So we're looking for this x sub 2 and y sub 2. If we label the points given, here's our x sub 1 and our y sub 1. Here's our middle x value and our middle y value. And we're looking for x sub 2, y sub 2. So we're going to deal with only the x's first. We're going to say that the midpoint x, -5, is equal to the sum of the other x values, -8 plus x sub 2 divided by 2. And then our y at the midpoint, 10, is equal to our y sub 1, which is 6, plus y sub 2 divided by 2. So both equations we're going to solve the same. We multiply by 2 first. So 2 times negative 5 is negative 10 is equal to, these 2's cancel, negative 8 plus x sub 2. Add 8 to each side. Negative 10 plus 8 is negative 2 is equal to x sub 2. We're going to solve for y sub 2 the same way, multiply both sides by 2. And 2 times 10 is 20. On the right-hand side of the equation, the 2's cancel, and 6 plus y sub 2. Subtract 6 from each side, and 14 is equal to y sub 2. So point G, the other endpoint, is going to be located at negative 2, 14. And again, if you're looking at this initial setup right here, for this endpoint E, if you're at negative 8 on the number line and you go to negative 5, aren't you going up 3? And if you go up 3 from the end to the middle, then you have to go up another 3 to get to the other end. So negative 5 plus 3 would be negative 2, which is your x value. If you're at 6 on the number line and you go to 10, to get from 6 to 10, don't you have to go up 4? And what's 10 plus 4? That's your 14. That's your y value at the end. All right? So some of you are going to be able to look at the end point in the middle and just ask that question. How do I get from negative 8 to negative 5? Well, you go up 3. Well, then go up 3 from the middle, and it'll give you the other end, which is negative 2. Okay? All right, so your practice for today is going to be on page 32. And on page 32, do problems 47 through 50. All right, again, if you finish that before the bell rings, work in the Alex app. You have 10 topics to learn by the end of the week. We're going to do a study guide tomorrow, and your quiz will be on Friday.